What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Mr. Nasty Time, here with Week 5 NFL Power Rankings. Heading into Week 5, 4 weeks down. A lot of major shifts in this week's Power Rankings. We've gotten to see these teams all play for 4 weeks, and now it's around the time, you could usually tell pretty early for most teams, in my opinion. Most of the time where they're going to land, but yes, there still is a lot of football left. This particular power ranking, there's going to be a lot of shifting going around. I think there's only a handful of teams that are going to stay put or stay within like a close proximity to where they were. Some big shifts based on what I think I'm going to see going forward from a lot of these teams. Couple bolder predictions. I see a lot of other people's predictions and power rankings. Not quite like mine. I see some teams that a lot of people are still bullish on that I'm not. But I guess we'll just get into it. This is definitely one of the more interesting seasons we've had. So, number 32, the Houston Texans. They are 0-3-1. So, the Texans, the numbers can be deceiving in terms of, they've had some tight games with teams, scored some points on teams, but a lot of their offense comes from, getting some big plays here and there. They're not really all that consistent in terms of their actual efficiency offensively, and obviously people score a lot of points on them. Davis Mills, can't really tell yet how good Davis Mills is. I just feel like for every play he looks pretty good, and then he has a bad play. So for me, the jury's still out on Davis Mills, but this team's definitely still in full-blown rebuild mode. Dameon Pierce had his coming out party, 14 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown. Nico Collins showing, like I said, he has talent. I just don't think that this offense yet has enough in terms of, juice throwing the football down the field with Mills. The offensive line's pretty shoddy. So a lot of Collins' plays are big plays. This game we just had out, he had 3 catches for 82 yards. Again, I've spoken about this defense before. This defense has a hodgepodge of talent at different spots. Older guys that need to be replaced, younger guys that don't have a lot of experience, but overall this team lacks overall talent and depth. Hopefully they could shed some of their players. Not a lot of free agents are bound for Houston. Not having to pay, tax on your cash, is probably appealing to a lot of people that are, interested in doing their business in Texas, but hasn't been a hub for a lot of big signings throughout the short tenure there, the Texans franchise. This team is in the bottom tier of total offense. I think they're ranked like 28th. They're one of the worst defenses. They're ranked 30th or 29th. This team's just not that good. I love Lovie Smith, but I'm just interested to see where they take this team in the future. I can't see this team winning more than 5 games this year. So Houston, 32. Down 5, Carolina Panthers sitting at 1-3 at number 31. The Panthers, literally one of the worst teams. It's wicked odd to me that a team that does have this much talent at the skill positions and a lot of actual good defensive pieces is this bad. I know the offensive line, and I can't really stick up for Baker Mayfield anymore. I actually wrote some things about Baker Mayfield in my notes, if I can find it. Let's see my notes for this team. Yeah, so the Panthers, the O-line's garbage, which doesn't help Baker Mayfield at all. But I can't really defend him anymore. He's been in the league, 4 or 5 years. His best year was his rookie year behind a really good team. Just got a lot of bad habits, bad choices, leaves the pocket a little bit too much with, just average mobility. It's oddly enough, he actually throws pretty good on the run, but when you're not as athletic as a lot of dudes in that position, you got to win from the pocket. Obviously, it's hard to win from the pocket when the offensive line's that bad. But this team is just coached like shit. Matt Rule, he should probably be fired after the season. Baker Mayfield, terrible passer rating. not grading well in any metrics you'd really like to use. Yeah, Carolina, 31. Washington Commanders. So a lot of people still hold out hope for the Commanders, but here's another team that has talent on both sides of the ball, and they're absolutely garbage through 4 games. Sitting at number 30, they're down 7 spots. They're 1-3. This team, I don't know. Carson Wentz is kind of like one of the enigmas of the NFL. At multiple points in his career, he's shown that he had all the talent to be, to be a high-level starting quarterback. He has ridiculous arm talent. He has athletic gifts. Just don't think he's all that smart of a quarterback. I think he makes a lot of bad decisions. He definitely likes to force the ball when he's not really good at reading defenses. A lot of times he only makes like a couple reads and just fucking hucks it. Just a lot of really bad turnovers that are his fault, and he's not really grading out that well. This is another team. Their last time out, they only averaged like 4 yards per 4.2 yards per attempt or some shit. Wentz isn't going to be able to recover from his earlier. Sorry, my cat's driving me nuts. You need to go. Go. Wentz isn't going to recover from the player that he was. This team spent a lot of money on their defensive backs, their backcourt or their defense, and they couldn't stop a nosebleed through the air if they tried. This team's absolutely hot garbage. I see them finishing last in this division. We'll get to the Giants later, but even though I think the Giants team does have a lot of flaws for a team that's 3-1, they've put together a more well-rounded and consistent of a team, at least more than the Commanders. I think these Commanders are going to finish last. Commanders at 30. Number 29, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I've seen Pittsburgh get placed pretty far down, but Pittsburgh is literally one of the worst teams in the league. I think their defense is a little overrated. They got a lot of players that people love that really aren't all that efficient and grade out all that well. Mika Fitzpatrick's having one of his better years, but he's had some years where he hasn't been all that bad. There is a possibility here that this team maybe could get a little revitalized. I already seen in only 13 passes last night that Kenny Pickett is clearly the choice to starting quarterback. Yeah, he threw 3 interceptions. 2 of them really weren't his fault. The other one really still wasn't all that bad, but that ball, I don't think outside of that he threw an incompletion. Kid is way more talented than Trubisky. Willing to take shots down the field. He averaged 3 more yards per attempt down the field in those 13 passes than Trubisky did. This offensive line's bad. This team's not that great at running the football. Obviously, you find that the teams that really aren't that talented tend to try to run the ball a lot. Tomlin plays has a kind of a balanced scheme over there where at times if he's going to lean one way, he leans more the run usually when his teams aren't that talented. But I really think that unless Pickett shows us going forward that he could turn this team around. This team's one of the worst teams in the league. They're one of the worst offensive teams. The only reason why a lot of their games have been competitive is because at times the defense has held them afloat. Pittsburgh going to be sitting here at number 29 until further notice. They're really not that good. This might be the first year that Mike Tomlin goes sub 500. Number 28, the Chicago Bears. So the Bears are a pretty interesting team. Oddly enough, they're getting a lot more out of certain players than I thought they were. They got a lot of guys that are starting to play well that, I didn't know about. And I always forget his name, oddly enough, after I say it, their defensive end there, who's playing really well for them. Let's see what I got for the Bears. So the approach to the Bears, Fields made no mistakes last game. He had 200-plus all-purpose yards. This team, this offense is really getting held back by the fact it's got one of the worst offensive lines in the league. They don't have any real talent anywhere on that offensive line. Darnell Mooney, I know that he doesn't have players around him. Cole Kmet's been a ghost. Darnell Mooney, kind of, I think he's an underrated player. But I definitely think there's a ceiling on his skill set. Solid route runner, can get down the field, but in terms of run after the catch and his athletic ability, doesn't have a lot of size to throw around. He's a slender guy. It's just a lot of those slender, down the field / slot guys. kind of can't really take over for a bad wide receiver core. And I think, it's really done Fields a disservice. I do believe and I hope that he's the quarterback going forward, but not only is his team not that great, they got a tough schedule coming forward, and I expect it to hold them back. They lack a depth on defense. Is another thing that's rough. They kind of they got some young kids that have stepped up on D, and they've been, stingy at times, but it's mostly led by three dudes. Roquan Smith, I forget the safety's name there, and then Jalen Johnson has been making a lot of plays, really good cornerback. Chicago Bears, obviously they're going to play conservative, run the football a lot, hope the defense holds, and if they get wins, they're going to keep grinding them out like they have been. I don't know. This team definitely in rebuild mode. Interested to see if the year ends as bad as I think it's going for them. Interested to see what they do next year. They're going to have a lot of draft capital, or not draft capital. They're going to have a pretty hefty sum of money to spend. Not a lot of draft capital because they've traded a lot of picks away to get certain players in the past, like Khalil Mack and stuff, which they don't have, and they don't even have Khalil Mack anymore. So this team's definitely in rebuild mode still. Chicago at 28. Atlanta Falcons, number 22. So the Atlanta Falcons, I don't have the Atlanta Falcons as high as other teams or as other places have. I've seen Atlanta in the teens in some places, but definitely an exciting team to watch. They're really putting up points offensively. Oddly enough, I think they're the type of playmakers they have through the air there with Marcus Mariota and their young wide receiving core up there. They can really take advantage of specific teams through the air because Mariota's threat to run, his throw on the run capability. Offensive line's not that great in pass pro, but they're getting a serious push. It seems like no matter who's back there running the football, they've been, outgaining a lot of teams on the ground. Athletic quarterbacks, some weapons through the air, the ability to move the ball when they need to. They're putting points up on people, but they can't stop anyone. I mean, they gave up 20 points last week to a bad offense in Cleveland, and all Cleveland does is really run the football. There's some young players on this team that I really like. Obviously, I love their young corner. I see his head or his face in my head, and I can't remember his name. For some reason, I'm getting worse with names as I get older. Like Trey London. London's really good. For pros for the Falcons, really good on the ground. They got two rookie running backs who played well last year, and they're basically their first starts. The scheme is really a really solid scheme. Does a good job scheming up zone run plays and dump offs to running backs. Tyler Algier, who I really like out of BYU, 10 carries, 84 yards. And Tyler Huntley, 10 carries, 56 yards, a touchdown. Again, like this team's Achilles heel is it could possibly be the worst defense in the league by the end of the year. There's no talent, no depth. Their front seven players are getting older. A lot of them left. Falcons at 27. Arthur Smith could possibly get. Some people like Arthur Smith. I like the fact that they're scoring. I could see him possibly on the hot seat. I mean, I think he's been there for. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know how long he's been there. I get the feeling like he's been there for a while, but yeah, Atlanta's another one of these teams that's 2-2 that could just score. And obviously, in this league, if you could score a lot of points, you'll have a shot to beat a lot of teams, even some of the teams with solid defenses. So, Atlanta up 3-27. Down 8, Detroit Lions. I know everyone still loves the Lions, and I know they are exciting and they've surprised everyone. The fact that a lot of people thought that this team was going to be a defensive team, a grinded out, run the football defensive team. Well, it turns out that this team is a revamped, passing team. They're throwing the pill all over the place. Out of nowhere, there's been a resurgence with good old Jared Goff, and he's just doing a good job spreading the pill. And so, why this team is interesting offensively is the fact that They're solid at running the football, but what's interesting is they do a lot of their damage throwing the ball down the field, and then they're really good in the goal line. Jamal Williams, I don't know how many touchdowns he's got, but every game it seems like he gets in the end zone. He just got into the end zone twice. He had 108 rushing yards last week. TJ Hawkinson caught 8 passes for 179 yards. This offense can score points. The problem is the offense is allowing like over 400 yards and like 34 points per game or something like that. It's something ridiculous. This team's going to be one of the teams that's vying for obviously one of the worst defenses in the league. Side note, one of my favorite young players, Jeff Okudah's actually playing a lot better on defense comparative to last year. Player Jeff Okudah, Ohio State safety, who I really liked coming out of college. He's had some serious ups and downs. Hopefully he can get better. He's only 23. Fun, but not really all that good. Their defense is going to make it so they're going to lose games, and you're not going to score 20 plus points every single week. So I got this team at 26. Seattle, and I don't know why this does this. It like makes it pop up. Boop. Seattle Seahawks, number 25. So Seattle to me is similar to, in a lot of ways, to Atlanta or Detroit. Seattle is 2-2 solely because they've been able to move the ball against almost everyone they've played. Oddly enough, I think he's like 31 or 32 years old now. Geno Smith, a little resurgence this year. Through 4 games, he's actually the highest graded quarterback with like an 85 grading flat. They got a big game out of Rashad Penny. I mean, you never know how it's going to be with teams with bad offensive lines. The running could just be variance. He had 17 rushes, 151 yards with 2 touchdowns. Geno Smith, super efficient, man. 23 for 30, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. He could also, run. This team's offensive line's bad, but if Geno Smith is going to be this focused, this tuned in, make good reads, and deliver the ball where it needs to be delivered, this team's probably going to keep scoring points. They have really good playmakers, obviously. They got 3 different tight ends they can hook the ball to. They got their weapons downfield in Lockett and DK Metcalf. So they put up 48 points, albeit it's on the Lions, who have one of the worst teams in the league. That game was a shootout, 45-48. Metcalf had 7 catches, 149 yards. Lockett, 6 for 91. This team is obviously trending up big time. I think right now this team is getting just enough in certain games and certain matchups defensively where if they could score these points, they could beat a lot of the teams behind them. I do think Pete Carroll will probably retire soon, so it'll be interesting to see what this team does going forward. I would still say, even though this team's 2-2, this team is still in rebuild mode. Their offensive line is bad. Their defense is bad. Geno Smith's probably not going to be the future. This team might be in position to draft one of the handful of really good quarterback prospects next year. So even if Geno Smith plays good, they'll probably look to sign him for a year or 2 more deal and probably train a guy behind him, which is what I would do. So Seattle 25. New York Jets. This was one of my teams where I thought they were going to be better than they are last year, and it's proven that they are better than they are last year. The Jets are a tough out this year. Had a couple decent wins, a comeback win. This team has a lot of young talent on both sides of the ball. They just got their rookie quarterback, or second-year quarterback, and Josh Wilson back over the weekend. Wasn't really all that fantastic in terms of efficiency, but you could see that his arm talent and then his ability to run and make splash plays and actually throw the ball down the field, he takes shots down the field, is going to put them in a better place if he can develop over time. He only threw 60% on his passes, which, you can't have that. He actually caught a touchdown which was pretty exciting, the old Philly special. This team's got talent everywhere. They're deep at wide receiver, young wide receivers, deep at running back, young running backs. When healthy, they have one of the better offensive lines. There's still 3 good offensive linemen on this team now that are under contract. Hopefully, Mekhi Becton can come back healthy next year. I think that if they can go out in free agency, they should have money next year to do it too. And, just add a little more to their front 7. Maybe get another corner. And if Wilson develops, I think this team could possibly be even better next year. I think he's got a young star wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. Yeah, I'm interested to see where the Jets go. So they're up 3-24. The other thing I want to say about the Jets is their pass rush showed up in this game over the weekend. Their front 7 players. They got a lot of young, talented guys. And I think they're just trying to figure out which ones are going to pan out and how they want to do rotation. So that was something. The Jets pass rush getting a lot of pressures getting home. So, yeah, it's fun to look fun times ahead to look forward to with this New York Jets squad. So, down to 23, the New Orleans Saints. So, the New Orleans Saints, again, are another, we've talked about the Saints similarly to last week. They're one of these teams that they have talent on both sides of the ball. They have talent where it matters, but for whatever reason, they're still not getting it together. Obviously, quarterback goes a long way. They lost to Minnesota in a really good outing. They swapped out, the big play strikeability, quote unquote, which actually really hasn't been there this year, from Jameis Winston with Andy Dalton, who's more of a, game manager, more of an accurate quarterback. Still, they lost by 3, but they didn't look too bad. Still lost. They're at 1-3, and based on some of the teams around them, I had to knock them back a little bit. And I don't see them being all that great going in the future. They're still going to have, some tough outs defensively, depending on the matchup. But I really think this defense as a whole has not lived up to what I thought it was going to be on paper. The secondary actually played a lot better than it has been last night. Tyrann Mathieu made some big splash plays, covered well, had some tackles. He actually had a really nice interception in the game. The game was over in London, be that what it will. I don't know how much people really, people's opinions on how it affects flying that far and stuff like that. Another big thing was this Saints team kind of shot itself in the foot against Minnesota. I'm pretty sure it gave up over 100 yards of penalties. But the Saints are going to be a team that has a solid defense, solid offensive line, playmakers. We're just going to have to see how far Andy Dalton can take this team. So right now they're sitting at 23. 22, New England Patriots. So this one's hard. So the Patriots, they're well coached. You know what the Patriots are going to do. They're going to just try their hardest to play defense. They're going to run the football a lot. I'm pretty sure Jones is injured. Mac Jones is injured, and they played 2 different guys. They played Hoyer, then they played Bailey Zappi. Zappi looked okay. Zappi coming out of, I think, Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Fucking Bailey Zappi. Zappi's an accurate guy, okay arm. They obviously had efficient runs. But what's killing this team, in my opinion, is their defense isn't athletic anymore. It's older. It's just not as athletic. The defense really isn't all that snappy. They dropped 27 points to the Packers, who really don't have the greatest weapons. Interesting to see where Bill Belichick goes from here. They're definitely going to finish. I think they're going to finish last. And we talked about this on the pod, that we thought the Jets could finish third. And at first, I kind of thought to myself, well, maybe they won't. But the Jets have a real opportunity here to not finish last in this division. Patriots, like I said last year, they made it into the playoffs last year, but this team just doesn't have the juice. They can't throw the football efficiently enough down the field. Everyone knows the run's coming. Defense is just not as snappy. It's not as athletic. A big part of the reason why they're in this is at only 22 is because they are well coached. You never know with Bill. Maybe he could pull it together. They got a nice young corner now who's actually his rating is number 1 in the league right now. It's at 88% or 88 grade through 4 games. I forget his name, and people on the internet freak out because no one knows him yet. But Yeah, this team is just your, average team that it has a little upside to maybe eventually be a middle of the pack team, but sitting at 1-3 out the gate, not looking good for the Patriots. Patriots at 22. So one of the more disappointing teams, I know everyone in the sister's cousin, Baby Tracy, fucking loved Indianapolis to fucking win 100 games this year, but this team is just not good. And a lot of people are higher on this team than me. I've seen people still have this team in the teens, but Indianapolis, I don't know how long, but they lost their arguably their best player and their running back. God, I'm bad with names. I don't know how I can't remember his name. Jonathan Taylor, he's out at least this week. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. But to be honest, this team really hasn't been running the ball as good as it was running it last year. Obviously, this team has really good defensive personnel. Matt Ryan's starting to wake up a little bit. 27 for 37, 356 yards, 2 touchdowns, interceptions. But this defense isn't that great. It got beat deep a lot. This team can be beat deep. Taylor's out. I just think that this offense is a little overrated. They're just going to run the football a lot, get behind. They're going to give up a lot of points. I also think they're not coached all that great. I see some odd decisions a lot of times coming from this team. A lot of people think Frank Reich should be fired. Some people think that they're going to turn it around, right the ship. I don't think so. As bad as Carson Wentz is playing, I couldn't tell you if it was a smart idea to trade those two out. I really don't have a good analysis or enough on the Colts. I just think that they're a solid roster that's underachieving. They're just not playing as well as they played last year. And honestly, even last year, I tried out telling everyone they weren't a threat. Couldn't even make the playoffs as well as they played last year. So, I don't know. This is like one of the teams I like talking about the least. I just think they're ass. Colts 1-2-1, sitting at 21. Number 3, Las Vegas Raiders. So I had to, based off everything that happened on this weekend, I knew the Raiders were going to have to get a bump. And they're only getting a bump primarily because they did win, but they did show the obvious path to victory is at times they're going to have some strikeability. I don't think they're going to consistently get that rushing output that they did out of Josh Jacobs because that offensive line is just ass. And a lot of people have this team rated high. I've seen people rate this team at like 15. Not me. I just think this team's so bad on the back end. I can't believe the Broncos lost to this team, man. And the Broncos, it's a whole other story. This team, the Broncos are starting to fall too. Team just really disjointed. But let me see. Raiders. I really do think that this game was probably a little bit of variance. Josh Jacobs had 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Adams did his thing. Raiders up by 3 based on the things that are going on around. This defense is still absolutely garbage. Their linebacker core is bad. Their defensive backs are, most of them are bad. I mean, they got Hobbs is solid, Morrig solid, but they don't got depth. They can't really cover anyone. They got decent defensive ends, and they got a lot of pressure in this game. A lot of things have to go right for this team to beat good teams. And I know Denver's sitting at 2-2, but if Denver can, for whatever reason, get themselves together, they're a better team than this Oakland Raiders team. You're not going to win every game, obviously. Most teams never do. I expect the Raiders at times to be able to put points on people. I could see the Raiders being a team, if they could score enough points, that could push themselves back to close to being 500. But no, I didn't even expect them to be 1-3. I expected them to be like a middle of a pack 4 in their division, which is probably as strong as a 4 you can be. But I don't know. The only positive is they saved an 0-3 start. What do they say? They say it's like less than 20% of the teams make the playoffs in the league or some shit with an 0-3 start or something. I don't fucking know. You know how that shit goes. Raiders at 20. Cleveland Browns. So Cleveland Browns are going to be staying at 19, right where they were last time. because Cleveland obviously is still one of the best rosters in the league. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league, two-headed monster running back, nasty front seven, linebackers that can cover, defensive backs that can cover and make tackles. They're getting enough out of Jacoby Brissett to where they can implement the game plan they normally implement on teams and be successful at it. One thing that's really helping this team, even though they're just sitting at 2-2, is Amari Cooper's really playing his ass off. And as much as I can't stand Amari Cooper for some of the shit I've seen him do in games, like taking plays off, sitting out for whole drives when the game's on the line, pouting and shit, he's always been talented. And for whatever reason, in my opinion, he's never lived up to his potential. He's always had okay years, and he's never had any really crazy standout years, in my opinion. There was one year he had with Dallas, where he was pretty good, but the dude's still one of the best route runners in the league, catches almost everything, and he's played his ass off with the Browns. They're just fucking feeding him the ball. My notes: good team, but not a lot of juice. Brissett, steady. Nick Chubb ran all over the Falcons. Obviously, the Falcons can't stop anyone. Nick Chubb, I think he averages like fucking over 5 yards a carry, which is fucking nuts. If your offensive line is that good and your running back is that efficient beyond, breaking his first set of tackles or past the point of attack, you're in a good position, especially once you get your quarterback. I wrote still waiting for Watson. If this team can keep themselves afloat, Watson comes back and he can even give them, half of what he's capable of. This team could still be floating around here with the extra playoff game and maybe snag a wild card spot if this team can get some lucky breaks. Browns still one of the best rosters. Just hopefully, I'm sure they're hoping on Brissett to just keep that boat a pushing. Cleveland 19. Tennessee Titans. So this is one of the teams that started out bad that I really do think they could turn it around. I love the coach and Mike Vrabel. The Titans, I really think in this last game out against the Colts, in my opinion, are a team that's very similar, but I do think Tannehill is better, and I do think when the Titans implement their game plan, even with the wide receivers not being as good as they used to be after losing Brown, I do think that Tannehill can be very efficient, even if he's not, obviously he's not going to take the shots he takes down the field without Brown. But I think they realize that they have to stick with a balanced game. Henry, 114 yards off 22 carries, a touchdown. The defense held against the Colts. I would still say there's not a lot of juice in the air, but if this defense can get back to form, they're a little banged up. I think this team could definitely start pushing back and battling for the division. I think this team's well coached. I just think that with some of the injuries that they've accrued, hopefully they start getting these guys back, and I just think that they're a well-rounded football team. Some guys have stepped up. That kid Tyler Phillips has stepped up. Their little slot receiver there. Hopefully we can get more out of Treylon Burks. I think this team can turn it around. It looks like Henry ran with confidence last year, or the last game out. So kind of rooting for this team a little bit. We picked them to win the division. Most of us on the podcast, oddly enough, no one would have thought the Jags would have come out the gate this hot at 3-1. But Titans, man, we'll see what they can do next week. They got a pretty good, big game next week too, as well. There, also love the Titans jerseys, by the way. Pretty slick color setup. Number 17, up one, the 3-1 New York Giants. I see you, baby Co, out here, the New York Giants. I've seen a lot of places have them high as 13. So I have them up one because obviously they won their last game, and based off what a lot of the teams, there's just way worse teams right now than this team. I do think the wins that they have not aged as well as I think a lot of Giants fans probably think they've aged well, but they're still 3-1. They're right there battling the division until I see them take a real big step backwards. I gotta put them up here and give them credit. Let me find my notes on the Giants. So pros, Barkley stayed healthy for 4 games, and he looks really explosive. He looks confident. I do believe Barkley's a player. As much as I do believe Barkley's, like, if you're gonna pay a running back some semblance of money, if you're gonna go that route, there's only a handful of backs I feel like you can give decent money too. And Barkley's a guy that you give he can catch 90 balls in a season. I mean, he's already done it. He can. I don't think he can run the route tree the way McCaffrey does, but I think he can be just as effective in a lot of ways. I do think he needs to be a little more confident running between the tackles, but his vision's really, really good. Making dudes miss, knowing when to cut, knowing when to take advantage of zone run plays. I think he sees really well down the field. I don't think he runs like him, but every time I see him make some of his plays where you definitely see his vision, it's got like a little LaDainian Tomlinson stuff going on there. He could break a big play off like LT used to be able to in a cinch, cut back across the field. So I'm happy to see him through 4 games be one of the best backs in the league so far. Defense has held through a lot of these games, although they haven't played any really good offenses, really. The one game they did lose was a team that's playing well on both sides of the ball, and the Cowboys. One big up for this team is whether you like it or not, PFF has Thomas, their left tackle, graded as the best left tackle in the league right now through 4 games with a 91 grade. One thing I really love about PFF is they actually brought tangible value to analyzing offensive linemen. Everyone used to just talk about like pancakes with offensive linemen and shit, but I love their criteria for grading offensive linemen. It brings a little more nuance to the offensive line game, finding value, figuring out who's really good and who's blocking efficiently. Andrew Thomas, 91 PFF grade. Keep it going, youngster. Cons, no juice through the air. Daniel Jones and the weapons. Not only does Daniel Jones struggle with his efficiency down the field, they don't really have anyone to throw it to down the field. They paid Kenny Galladay all that money for nothing. He's not the type of guy I'd pay a lot of money to. You can get a down, stretchy field, jump ball, 50-50 guy for a fourth of what he makes. If you're going to pay $19 million, $20-something million a year to a guy, he needs to be able to do absolutely everything, and he's just not there. I would say the other con is this defense really probably needs to be tested before I can rank them much higher, considering the trajectory of a lot of these other teams. But I still think this is a solid football team. I love how hard they play on defense. A lot of these kids on defense give no fucks and stick their fucking head in there and hit motherfuckers. So Giants, 17. Down to Arizona Cardinals. So the Cardinals are a tricky one. You're either really, really high on the Cardinals or you're really, really not. For most people, I would say I'm not that high on the Cardinals. It's touchy because they brought in a coach specifically to coach Kyler Murray because that coach teaches a scheme that he played in a lot in college. I don't really know what to say about this team because they're probably the team that confuses me the most out of all these teams. They got young, unseasoned, really athletic players on the defensive end. They don't have a lot of depth on the defensive end. They've had to deal with some injuries. You never know what you're going to get out of Kyler Murray. But the problem is they do have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Offensive line solid. They got decent young running backs. They got decent young guys to throw the football to. They're about to get D-Hop back. So I feel like I got to place this team, and I can't find my freaking notes for them, but I feel like I still got to place this team as a middle-of-the-pack team. They're 2-2. Based off how inconsistent they've played at time with the wrong breaks, they could be a lot worse. They still run the ball efficiently. Like I said, they don't have a lot of depth. The defense did hold in this game to the Panthers, but it's the Panthers. They need D-Hop bad, and they need to tighten the bolts up on this defense. When they get D-Hop, they'll have a real go-to guy for Kyler to get the ball to when, plays break down or when he feels like he's going to do something stupid because he does make a lot of mistakes. I shared some of the guys where he can never tell when blitzes are coming and shit. It's pretty funny. But outside of that, he still has talent for days. I'd like to see him in an offense where, the coach has a more straightforward scheme but can let him improvise a little bit. But with D-Hop coming back, he's going to have that safety valve, a guy that he could always throw the ball to when all else fails and get good results from it. D-Hop's been doing that his whole career. So I reserve to drop this team too far now until I see what they look like with D-Hop back, see if they can tighten things up as they go. I see a coaching change coming in the near future. Obviously, the quarterback's so talented, you just signed him, he's not going anywhere. But I could see a coaching change on the horizon, especially if this team doesn't get close to 500. Yeah, there might be some firing going on in this regime. Arizona at 16. Down 4-15, the Denver Broncos. So I'm not willing to throw Denver into the basement yet. I feel like Denver is a team that I can't give up on because they're just so talented on both sides of the ball. And I know they lost Javonte Williams, but this running game hasn't totally fully relied on him. They got some other young backs that have shown some promise. Again, it's mostly about, most of the time, in most instances, it's about how efficient is your offensive line blocking. They still have Melvin Gordon. They got that kid, what's his name there? Is it Booth that's behind both of them, who's shown some flashes of being good. I just think this team's made the wrong coaching decision. I think this team just makes a lot of bad play calls. I think they're bad when it comes to managing the in-betweens of action, penalties, game-time decision stuff, when to kick field goals, when to go for it on third down. Their third down efficiency is absolutely awful. And, you know, if you're Russ, you're probably thinking to yourself, like, man, like, did I make the right decision? They haven't been that great at stopping the run. Last week, I think they gave up like 5.2 yards per run. So now, I do think there is value in stopping the run still because a lot of teams try to do it. The advanced analytics would say run defense isn't that valuable. But I guess depending on the team you're playing, if the team's really good at passing the ball, you ain't going to want to give up the fucking run too. They're just super inconsistent, man, at all levels, whether it's special teams, defense, offense, play calling. I don't know how the fuck they lose the Raiders. I don't know. It's crazy. They were 3-11 on third down, 1-2 on fourth down. I don't know. I'm sure everyone's calling for Hackett's head. Denver 15. One of the surprises, I for some reason I thought this team was 3-1, but they're a strong 2-2, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good old Dougie Peterson coming in there and just flipping this fucking team around. There is something to be said for not just for coaching as a whole, but also what a good coaching unit can do to galvanize a team. They play, I thought in this game against Philadelphia that the Jaguars shot themselves in the foot. I thought they didn't play as efficiently as they've been playing. They still only lost by 8. That's a really good sign, 29-21. Trevor Lawrence looks like a whole new man now with Doug Peterson there. For the most part so far throughout the season has been really efficient. Just everything about him's better. His poise in the pocket, his footwork, his decision-making. He's finding his guys. This defense has been really crafty and stingy, which is interesting. There's a lot of young guys on this team. They got out to a 14-point lead on the Eagles, and they just weren't able to hold it. Eventually, the Eagles got themselves together. A lot of really good young players, like I said, on this team. Andre Sisco, safety out of Syracuse. I'm pretty sure he had a pick 6. I just love the young talent on both sides of the ball. I think they got to get a little better on the offensive line. They got some really good running backs. I do think would help this team if they could go out next year in free agency and get it and pay for a real true number 1 wide receiver. But I do think that this team could be a possible wild card team if they keep going the way they've been going. I mean, the Eagles are tough out, and yeah, they had them on the ropes, but, you know, young teams are not the best at really, you know, putting the nail in the coffin and finishing teams off. So it's interesting to see, you know, where Jacksonville goes from here. I'm trying to actually find the rest of my notes for these guys. Yeah, I wrote not efficient, but still in the game. They gave up 400+ yards. You gotta tighten up. Yeah, they got some turnovers and stuff, but you just gave up way too many yards in this game, and they weren't coming into this game. So I still like Jacksonville to be a very tough out for almost any team that plays them going forward. So Jacksonville at 14, keep it trucking. Number 13 at 3-1, up by 4, the Dallas Cowboys. So this is a team that over the past couple weeks has been clicking on both sides of the football. Pass protection's been good, efficient runs, really spread the pill all over the place. And like people give McCarthy a lot of shit. I don't really know who's fully doing all the play calling there. But they didn't, let this team go to shit. They held on to the reins tight and kept this team afloat. Most people, including myself, I threw this team down into the fucking basement when they lost Dak. And don't get me wrong, initially I stand by it because when you lose one of the best quarterbacks in the league, normally, for most teams, that's, you're just going to drown. But Cooper Rush, surprisingly, is paid amazing. He's been efficient. What I like about Cooper Rush is I think Cooper Rush has been doing a good job knowing where to go if something is working. CeeDee Lamb, the past 2 games has played really well. Cooper Rush keeps going to the well, feeding him the ball. Not a lot of big explosive plays down the field, but CeeDee Lamb's been doing a real good job, staying patient, being focused through his routes. Obviously, he was one drop away. Was it in the Giants game? Or was it last week? Where he dropped a ball, which would have put him well over 100 yards because he would have taken it to the house. But a lot of pros for this Dallas team. Cooper Rush, 15 for 27, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns. Feed the wide receivers. Efficient runs, but they didn't need to lean on the run to win. They ran when they needed to, like you should. In this particular game, Lamb had 6 catches for 97 yards, a touchdown. Gallup came back and flashed, made an appearance, caught a nice improvised touchdown where he realized the play was broken and then flipped his hips and ran along the back of the end zone. Rush was running, found him on the run. That third string wide receiver, Brown, really underrated, solid route runner, can go up and catch the ball. This defense, super ferocious, playing efficiently, constant pressure. They're just sending waves of guys at people, and the linebacking core is holding up enough in the middle of the field. And the corners playing a lot better than they did last year. When you go and look at the advanced metrics, Trevon Diggs is playing about 20% better than he did last year, which is what you want. I mean, the interceptions and stuff are still going to be there for him because he's just a freak athlete. But this team right now is just firing on all cylinders. They got a big game next week. Interested to see where Dallas goes from here. Love the front seven, the pass rush. Love the weapons. You'll just see what happens when Dak comes back. I mean, every quarterback plays differently. Dak tends to be a guy that spreads the ball a lot, but I do think the difference between his style of play and Rush's style of play is Rush has been finding when the spots where he needs to go to the well, and he's actually going to the well. I'm a firm believer that, Dak doesn't throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb a lot, especially when he's playing well. I think it's killed them in the past. They get into positions where they should be throwing the ball and they run it too much, just like the Bengals. But we'll get to that. So Dallas at 13. Los Angeles Rams down 3, sitting at 2-2. So the Rams, a lot of this is because they're just riddled with injuries. Quarterback Herbert's playing beat up. They lost Joey Bosa. They lost Keenan Allen. They lost Rashawn Slater. They'll probably be able to keep it afloat because their quarterback's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But it's rough sailing for them right now. This team's talented on both sides of the ball. It's just they're really just getting beat up with injuries. They're in a tough division. Right now they're sitting at 2-2. They just had a win over Houston where Houston put up 24 points on them. I still think the defense at times could be a little bit leaky. I still don't like their linebackers. I think their linebackers are just absolute garbage when you're out there fucking... What the hell is a Drew Tranquil? That's who they're touting it. Middle linebacker. It will be tough sledding in this division until they get healthy. But I do think they're going to remain competitive. I mean, Austin Eckler does a good job sharing the load. out there with efficient runs and catching a lot of balls. Being a good little safety valve for Herbert. But we're going to see what Herbert's made of over these next handful of weeks while guys are injured. I don't know how long everyone's out for. Defense needs to step up and play better. Herbert's got to, just trust in what's left of his offensive line. Keep getting the ball to fucking Williams. 7 catches, 120 yards. He can get in the end zone. But that dude's a mismatch nightmare against any player he's on. Yeah, they fell back a little bit, but it's still one of the better teams in the league. Still going to be a tough out against any team they play. Still probably going to be able to score points, even with injuries. Yeah, Los Angeles at 12. Number 11, falling out of the top 10 at 2-2 on my power rankings. Los Angeles Rams. So, I don't know what's going on with the Rams. The Rams have one of the most talented rosters in the league, but they're sure as hell not playing like it. The only pros I have, Cooper Kupp is out there being Cooper Kupp over the weekend. 14 catches, 122 yards. But at the end of the day, he's only one guy. Didn't get in the end zone. Stafford, filled up the stat sheet, just wasn't really all that efficient. Had 0 touchdowns and interception. This defense, I don't know if it's just because a lot of the players are getting a little older on it. I really thought with Bobby Wagner coming in, this defense would be a lot better against the run. They haven't been that great against the run. They just look really disjointed on defense. I feel like the communication, was really lacking. You see them out there, they kind of just, look confused a lot of times. A big thing for me, they paid Allen Robinson. Like, where the fuck is he at? Like, Allen Robinson has been a ghost. I needed him to catch one pass for me, and I would have won money over the weekend, and he just couldn't do it. Another big thing that's holding this offensive back is the offensive line is just bad. Not only did they lose offensive linemen last year, they've had injuries, and some of their offensive linemen that have filled in just aren't playing all that great. This team's in a tough spot, sitting here at 2-2. They're still one of the better teams. They still have a lot of good players. But yeah, so this team's taking a big step back for me. Yeah, I don't know what to make of this team going forward. And a lot of people are freaking out about the fact that, they can't run the football. And right now they're like 30th in the league in rushing. Well, they won the Super Bowl last year being 27th in rushing. My biggest concern is his offensive line is bad. Quarterback doesn't look confident, probably because of that. And this defense just isn't what it was last year. So, Los Angeles Chargers 11. Dropping back 1, the 3-1 Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, they won over the weekend. Let's see what I got here for the Vikings. You'll find it. There it is. So they won over the weekend to the Saints, but, it's not the most impressive win. They still gave up 25 points, the Saints. Not primetime Kirk Cousins helped them on the game-winning drive, like cool as a cucumber because it's not a primetime game. This team is one of the more interesting teams. They still have a lot of playmakers. They got tight ends they could drop the ball off to. They got one of the better running backs in the league. Justin Jefferson's an absolute fucking beast. There's a whole lot of spamming, a whole lot of targets to Thielen. He was picking up a lot of good first downs. My biggest concern with this team is just the defense is fucking leaky. Like, when is this defense going to be consistent? On paper, they got the players to be consistent and to be a good defense. I'm not really liking what I see defensively. You can't give up 25 points to the Saints and have them be in the game at the end of the game. Kirk Cousins, 25 for 38, 273, touchdown, interception. Jefferson's still out here cooking everyone, doing his thing for 140 yards, 10 catches. Dalvin Cook, 100 all-purpose yards. One thing I like about this Viking offense is they do a really good job scheming their guys open and spreading the pill around. They do a lot of good job putting guys in motion, misdirection, and not to mention the fact that Justin Jefferson could just run routes and everyone just clunks into each other. Love that fucking player. This team, to me, is going to be a playoff team. They're 3-1 in a division that's not that great, but it's going to be interesting to see, once these teams get later into the season, as long as the injuries pan out, not everyone's all beat up. Interested to see if what a late version of this Minnesota team is going to be like against the Packers. So for me, Minnesota's still a top 10 team. if they could tighten the defense up a little bit, I think they're probably going to stay a top 10 team. So it's really going to rely on if Kirk can stop having meltdowns and if the defense can hold, because they're explosive offensively. Vikings 10. Back to the Baltimore Ravens. So the Baltimore Ravens, respect the Ravens a lot, and they are a dangerous football team. This team was the team that I thought would be a team that could possibly win the NFC North or the AFC North this year. Team's been a little bit inconsistent at times. One of the pros is J.K. Dobbins has been back and he's been healthy. This team is still solid on both sides of the ball. Again, this team is similar to the Vikings team, is that the defense has good personnel and it's a little bit leaky. They gave up nine penalties in this game. Lamar threw 2 interceptions, even though everything else was great. This was an odd game. It was more about efficiency versus time of possession. A lot of people really love holding on to the football a long time, and they think that's the best way to victory, but you can still lose football games if you're winning the time possession if you're not that efficient. The Bills were just a little bit more efficient, made less mistakes. I do think that this team right now is designed great for Lamar Jackson and his skill set. However, I still have been saying that if he only had like a really good number one consistent wide receiver. I like Bateman. He could take the top off the defense, 50-50 balls. I love the tight ends. Duvernay is a little underrated, but I think against really good teams, this team might not have the juice, even if Lamar has a great game, to beat some of the top tier teams. Interested to see what's going to happen when Cincinnati rolls in there. I really believe that Cincinnati has their number. I think they gamble a little bit too much with their man-to-man defense, and I think that could get them beat a lot in certain scenarios. So Baltimore's still going to be a top 10 team. I still think the Baltimore Ravens will probably make the playoffs. But all it takes for this team is for Lamar to just have one inconsistent game, and, they lose a close one. So we'll see how they go from here. Baltimore, number 9. So the Miami Dolphins, 3-1. They're going to fall back from 5 to 8. Primarily the reason why they're getting knocked back a little bit is, they've had a few injuries here and there, and they lost Tua. Now I know you can keep yourself afloat with Teddy Bridgewater, but it's still not going to be the same, because even though Bridgewater is steady, one thing I loved about Tua so far this year is he was opening up and hucking the pill down the field. I think this team likes to play a little bit too much man. They can get themselves in positions where they get, beat by man-to-man defense. It's a lot of reason why the Bengals, beat them down the field on Thursday Night Football, was because, even though you do have good corners and good defensive backs, it's only a matter of time against, a better group of wide receivers or a paramount or a group of wide receivers that is up to that level. You're going to get burnt a lot in close games. You need special guys. They played a lot of press man, single high safety stuff throughout the Bengals game, and they paid the price for it on a couple instances, especially against T. Higgins. I think people underrate how fast he is, but this Dolphins team, they're still going to be really competitive, especially with Teddy Bridgewater. If you look at the advanced metrics and his numbers, he doesn't give you the explosive plays, but, man, he just gives you a very, very high level of efficiency and accuracy. Tyreek Hill, still dangerous as ever, 10 catches, 160 yards. This team's complete. Solid offensive line, efficient running backs. They know when to really dial up their run plays and get the most efficiency out of their runs. Obviously, their objective is going to be, to implement a multi-layered passing attack. They like to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets of Mike Gesicki and lay a lot of their deep routes, hide a lot of their deep stuff with some of their underneath quick route runners. It's usually like a combination. It's usually like Gesicki occupying the middle of the field, someone's on a drag, and then another fast dude's flying over the top. You're just going to have to pick your poison. Love the coach. Obviously, we'll touch on Tua. Tua's hurt. He probably shouldn't have played. He's not going to play this weekend. And I think they should sit him for a little bit. It's rough. The concussion thing is rough. it stinks because you could get unlucky with concussions. I mean, he might hit his head a handful more times throughout his career and maybe never have a concussion again. You can hit it just right once and it could flatline you. So I truly felt bad for him, and I hope he makes a hasty recovery. They say he's okay and shit, but I think the Dolphins have really improved on both sides of the ball. I think a lot of it started when they started adding the playmakers and making the investment on offensive line. They got one of the best left tackles in the league. So I do think the Dolphins are going to stay a top 10 team, especially when Tua comes back. So Dolphins at 8. Number 7, the Bengals up 3. Probably the strongest 2-2 team. Maybe beside, there's another team on this list that's 2-2 that's above them, and I know a lot of people probably freak out when I put them there. But this is one of the strongest 2-2 teams. So the Bengals, another efficient game by Joe Burrow. Our wide receivers are great against man or zone. It doesn't make a difference if it's cover 2, cover 3 match. We'll take advantage of any of that shit. Double shells, it doesn't matter. Single high safety, especially if you play fucking man to man, we're gonna take advantage of it. The playmakers are great after the catch. Hayden Hurst got in the end zone. Crafty route running tight end. Not much in the blocking category, but the front 7 actually showed up on defense. Not only were we not getting a lot of pressure for the first handful of games, we weren't getting home either. Mostly I care about the pressure. Not only were they getting pressure against the Dolphins, who have a solid offensive line now, but they were actually getting home too, so that's a plus. Gave up big plays down the field defensively, which is something I don't like, but something that was an issue for us at times in crucial moments. And I wouldn't say consistently, but there was a couple crucial moments that lost us some games where they took advantage of certain matchups. Eli Apple sometimes gets a little bit plays to his instincts a little bit too much, gets opposition and gives up big plays. For the most part, he rates out pretty damn well. We also run the ball too much. We ran Mixon like fucking 30 times last week for like 60 yards. I don't know what's going on with the coaching staff. I love Zach Taylor, but sometimes some of the play calls they decide just fucking boggle my mind. And I definitely think that, when everything's going, when the Bengals are playing to the best of their efficiency, we should be throwing the ball and taking advantage of what teams are trying to do to us with those playmakers through the air, Tyler Boyd, etc. I just think we wasted a lot of possessions, a lot of drives, just running into a fucking brick wall over and over again. And it's not good for the running backs either. So I'd like to see them do a better job running when they should run, as opposed to just running just to run like a lot of teams do. Burrow, 20 throws, 20 for 31, decently efficient, 28, 60%, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins showing yet again that he's wide receiver 1A. I think he's just as good as Jamar Chase, 7 catches, 124 yards and a touchdown. Bengals back into the top 10, back in the mix. Down 1 to number 6, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are an odd one. A team that you can make an argument has just as much talent as everyone else, but they are riddled with injuries as well. The oddest part about this game was they gave up 41 They gave up 41 points to the Chiefs, and obviously, as everyone knows now in today's NFL, even if you have one of the best defenses in the league, one of the best offenses in the league can come in and roll you, especially if they're really efficient at passing. The game is more tailored now penalty-wise to passing. There's a lot of ways they can take advantage of you. A pro is Tom looks as good as he's ever been, and I don't give a shit what anyone says. Like, he had 385 yards. I'm pretty sure he had 3 touchdowns. He had no interceptions, and they lost. And it's like he still has great footwork, great decision-making, still losing for the pocket, still fucking, throwing the pill is with the velocity he's always had. He showed up. This defense did not show up. This front seven's one of the nastiest front sevens. They got ran all over by a multitude of backs. Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Not only was Tom fantastic, they knew they weren't going to be able to run on this Chiefs front seven, so they threw the ball a lot. But Evans, 8 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's just a mismatch nightmare. Tom out here doing his thing, spreading the pill. This team is still one of the best teams in the league. I just think that, you can't give up 41 points to anyone. I don't even care if it's the Kansas City Chiefs. So this defense has got to go back to the drawing board and throw that one out. Throw the baby out with the bathwater on that. I wrote in my notes, even a good defense can't stop some of these teams. It doesn't matter. Like, you can make an argument on paper. The Bucs had the best defense. They got fucking stomped defensively. Buccaneers at 6. This is the one that's probably going to surprise everyone the most. This is probably the best 2-2 team right now, depending on how you feel about it. Obviously, Joe Burrow is a better quarterback. Some people would probably say the Bengals are the best 2-2 team. But in terms of a sheer overall roster, team, and coaching scheme standpoint, I think this team is the best 2-2 team. San Francisco 49ers hopping them up 8 out of 8 points up to 5. 49ers, same thing goes with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think now at this stage in Jimmy's career, he's in an offense that I feel like really caters to what he's good at. Short and intermediate pass attempts, middle of the field. He's always been solid at throwing, slants and a lot of the in-route stuff. Just follow the flow of the offense is all he needs to do. He's playing probably, in my opinion, he's playing probably some of the best football he's played. I do think that he will not be clutch, and he's going to have a hard time making a lot of the big throws downfield, depending on the teams they play against. He's never been really all that great passing the ball down the field, although the scheme, makes it a lot easier for him. This offense is just amazing. All the different play calls and misdirections Kyle Shanahan uses, multiple tight end and extra blocker, fullback packages, versatile fullback and Kyle's Juszczyk where you could put him all over the place, versatile tight end. They just got so many weapons. The frig is their tight end's name? Oh, God, that's going to bug me. I see his head. I see his face in my head, but one of the best tight ends in the league. You block and he can pass catch. Same with Kyle Juszczyk. And they just put these dudes in motion and flip all these play calls around. Really good layered misdirection running attacks. And then they got just amazing playmakers. And in a system like this, all of their playmakers are great after the catch, after they break the first tackle. And that's really what sets this offense apart from a lot of other offenses in the league. Is not only is the scheme next level, and they put in, well, it takes a lot of extra work to run a scheme like this. Guys are going in motion. A lot of dudes had to be proficient at blocking. The schemes and the zone blocking is a little bit more complex. You got to pick a lot of different dudes up at the next level. There's a lot of work that goes into this type of offense. It's very intricate offense, and then it really just opens up the pass game. So, I don't think they were really all that scared when Trey Lance went down. I know they got to an NFC Championship game with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I do expect this team to, keep trucking along on offense. I mean, their playmakers are just way too good. Their offensive line is way too good. The scheme's way too good. And then we haven't even talked about the defense yet. The defense is absolutely stifling. Warner and Greenlaw are just fucking animals. Just really good at sniffing out the run. The team they play, the Rams, they don't even run the ball, but they couldn't even if they fucking wanted to. Just some fucking instinctive beasts in the middle. Cornerbacks are really good. They have depth at corner. The young safety Hufanga had a pick 6. Boza had 7 or 8 pressures, depending on, what you consider a pressure, 2 sacks. Again, efficiency versus time of possession. The Rams had the ball more, and they still got worked. George Kittle. I always forget his name. George Kittle, he can block, and him and Juszczyk are the 2 keys, in my opinion, to his offense. Put them in motion, they can block. They can catch balls at the short, intermediate, medium. They can go deep. Fucking Juszczyk got out there and caught a nice little 30-yard pass and ran down the sideline for a big play. This team can just attack you in so many different ways. And as long as this defense keeps playing the way it's playing, and if they don't keep accruing injuries, They're going to get Trent Williams back, I think, eventually, and this team's going to be off to the races. I think this team has a legit shot of winning their division. San Francisco 49ers at 5. Staying put at number 4, the Green Bay Packers. Nothing really too exciting about the Packers' win over the weekend. They can barely beat the Patriots. But obviously you have Aaron Rodgers, who's arguably the best quarterback ever to play. He's still going to play well enough to keep this offensive float behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. Behind the efficient two-headed monster they got back there. Both the running backs can run inside, outside. They can catch balls. They, not only can they catch balls, but they can get down the field if you need them to and catch balls. I'm a little concerned about the defense. This defense on paper should be way better than it is. They shouldn't be giving up 24 points to the Patriots. Their offense is absolutely hot garbage. The only thing that's going to hold this team back, in my opinion, is the defense. Because if the defense doesn't step up and play like a top 10 defense, it's going to be a lot tougher for Aaron Rodgers to do his thing. Offensive line, still going to give Rodgers the time to dish the ball around to all these other guys. I wish these young kids would not drop all the fucking balls they drop, or else they'd probably score a lot more points on people. Romeo Doubs dropped a ball in the fucking end zone. Christian Watson has shown already he's not that great at getting open, and he drops everything. I do like Romeo Doubs, but obviously if you could give Aaron Rodgers enough, he'll still torch teams and smoke teams. I expect this team to chill behind the run. Rodgers makes the clutch plays when they need to. Hopefully, if you're the Packers, you want to get out to leads with that run, with that game being a little bit balanced and use the run at the end of the game. That's if the defense slows. I still think this is one of the best teams in the league. Hopefully these receivers can get it together and, be more consistent. If they could be more consistent, this team could give people a lot of problems. We'll see if they can hold off the Vikings at the end of the year, but 3-1 Green Bay Packers. So staying put at 3, Kansas City Chiefs. So obviously the Chiefs were impressive against the Buccaneers. They still gave up 31 points. Their front seven is super, super good. Their defensive linemen, their edge rushers are nasty. Jones, the new kid, Carol Loftus. They have underrated linebacker core. Again, these corners are inconsistent at times. They get burnt. They don't have the honey badger back there. I do like their young corners. I just think they're inexperienced. I do, but when your team goes out here and can score 41 points against probably fucking anyone that they play, that's always going to be a recipe for probably winning more games than you lose. They shredded arguably the best defense in the league so far up into that game. Mahomes had one of the best performances of any quarterback all year, even though he threw one interception. He just made so many great big-time throws. He spread the pill all over the place. He was also ran the ball for 34 yards and snagged a couple touchdowns. They have a two-headed monster back there with Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Both guys can catch passes. I really think they need to mix it up a little bit better and give Pacheco a share of the runs at the goal line. Hopefully these defensive backs can get it together and hold up to there in the bargain going later down the field or down the year, because that's going to be their Achilles heel. Full healthy Bucks team. Who's to say Tom can't throw 2 more touchdowns and then you're on the losing end of that? He had ample opportunities too, but I still think this Chiefs team is the 3rd best team in the league right now. Kansas City could possibly be the best offense in the league. Definitely one of the best teams in the league. Andy Reid's the man. Kansas City, number 3. Number 2, the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills stay at number 2. Obviously, everyone knows that what the Bills' bread and butter is. It's going to be the Josh Allen show all day. The Bills, they're really efficient at passing the ball. They've been really efficient at running the ball. Not only have they been efficient at running the ball through 4 games, they actually ran the ball for more yards than I thought they would. You can still be efficient and not run for a lot of yards. It's looking that this year the run might actually be a weapon for them, which is good because they're smart enough to use it when they need to use it, not just use it all the time. Tight one to the Ravens. They were down early and clawed their way back. Obviously, again, like I said, efficiency against time of possession, but Allen not as efficient as he can be, but still very effective. He ran for 70 yards at a touchdown. He went 19 of 36 for 213 yards and a touchdown. Spread the pill all over the place. That's what this offense is going to do. They got a lot of really, obviously they got an elite wide receiver, but then they also got a lot of really good wide receivers that fit the roles that are asked of them. He spreads the pill all over the place. The defense rallied and really was part of the big reason why they made their push back into the game and held the Ravens back. Lamar didn't have his best day. I would say the cons is this team's not firing on all cylinders yet, and a lot of it is due because they actually have injuries on both sides of the ball, which is, pretty sweet for them because they're going to be getting a lot of these guys back, and they're 3-1 right now, still looking like one of the best teams in the league. So they've been putting on a clinic for the most part with a lot of key guys hurt. My only other question is Gabriel Davis going to actually emerge? You see the talent, you see the flashes. Is he going to emerge and be consistent as a number 2? I'm concerned. It's only 4 weeks in, but I haven't seen enough out of him to say that he's going to do that yet. So that's one of the only cons for this Bills team. So, really deep in all levels of their roster. Once all their guys are fully healthy and come back, I think this team is going to be knocking on the door just like last year for the Super Bowl. So Bills number 2. And for the second straight week, number 1, Philadelphia Eagles 4-0. So I was a little concerned for the Eagles last week going into the Jags game, and yes, they did win. And as I did say, I thought the Jags didn't play to their best ability, but I also think the Eagles did the same thing. I also think the Eagles weren't efficient as they could be and didn't play to the best of their ability. It was probably, even though he played solid, I think it was Hurts probably his worst game from an efficiency standpoint. But they still played really well. Hurts, let's see. Hurts, I wrote not his best game. He only passed for, 204 yards. He did not throw a touchdown, but Miles Sanders really stepped up in this game. 27 carries, a little wild for my taste. 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. Defense got tested against the Jags, even though the Jags weren't that efficient. My biggest concern with this Eagles team is, can I trust this defense? There's a couple teams they've given up a lot of points to. I also do think that they've beaten some teams that really aren't all that great, but they still are undefeated. They're still one of the most versatile and deep teams in the league, and I love their contrasts and concepts in terms of how they attack the field with throwing and how they mix in their runs. I think they need to keep trusting in Jalen Hurts to be the weapon and being the engine that makes this offense go. 27 carries from Miles Sanders. He's injury prone. I think they should probably mix those runs around a little bit more and give Jalen Hurts a few more runs. And a lot of people are freaking out about quarterbacks getting runs. I'm kind of starting to get annoyed with some of the people that get wicked freaked out or butthurt when quarterbacks that are good at run the football. People are always like, oh, he shouldn't run that much. He shouldn't run that much. I understand that if the quarterback gets hurt, it's the most important position, and it puts your team in a severe deficit if you don't have that player. But some of these quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, these guys are strong guys. They're built to run the football. And a lot of them have been doing well and not really getting hurt all that much. I just think that they, obviously should be smart and know how to, at times, get out of harm's way, slide, get out of bounds. But I think you're going to start seeing that this is going to be one of the new wrinkles in the offense. I've always said that the team that can officially throw the ball and officially run the ball with a quarterback is one of the most dangerous offenses in the league. It leaves the ability for you to either put an extra blocker on the field or 2, or an extra dude to throw the ball to on the field if your quarterback can single-handedly run the ball himself. You could also make decisions off that, because the quarterback is the guy with the ball in his hands at all times. He's the one that could change the outcome of play more than any other player. So I find it interesting to me, when people get sickened when quarterbacks run all the time. like I said, I do understand from a value standpoint, but 27 carries for Miles Sanders, man, I don't know. Hurts is a very efficient runner. Not as efficient this year as he was last year, but he's still being effective, obviously, because they're using him good around the goal line. But this team is still going to be tough to beat. I do think they need to tighten it up a little bit on defense. The defense scares me. I know a lot of Eagle fans are confident out there right now, but all it takes is Chiefs to roll in there and put 41 on you, and then you can only put up 25. If the Chiefs can put up 41 against the Bucs, they can put up 41 on the Eagles on the right day. So right now, Eagles at number 1. They got a couple teams nipping at their heels. Interested in all these matchups coming up on week 5. Friday night, we're going to be doing a episode to break down everything that's gone on in the past 4 weeks. We're going to have Anton on, Chad on, Keegan, anyone else, hopefully, that wants to come on and talk about, all the fun stuff and the crazy stuff we've seen so far. Probably talk about what teams we think are actual contenders, what teams we aren't, what teams are rebuilding. Maybe get into early candidates for some awards and things of that nature, and just pick the guys' brains and find their opinions out on what teams they think are real or not. And most likely they'll turn into a fest where they all start arguing with each other, which that's always good content too. But yeah, let me know how you guys feel about these power rankings. Obviously, a lot of shuffling went on. Like, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. You guys can find me at Mr. Nasty Time on YouTube. You can find me there on Twitch. And actually, the new Call of Duty is going to be coming out, and I think I'm going to be transferring my streaming soon to YouTube, so watch out for that. I'll start streaming a lot of my gaming content on YouTube, so everything will be all in one house, and my brother and I are probably going to get on that grind, play some Warzone with the boys. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this past week of football. Kicking off tomorrow, Thursday Night Football. I'm pretty sure it's a boring game on tomorrow. I'm pretty sure it involves like the Colts, so that's how you know it's going to be boring. I can't even remember who they're playing. Yeah. So, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll holla at you guys later.